What began as a joke became a man's last wish, and today it led to a funeral like no other. 10 TV's Glenn McIntyre witnessed this unforgettable farewell, but first a little warning here. The story contains images that may be upsetting to some viewers.
Bill Stanley was no ordinary man.
He was what you would call a twist of color on the tweed surface of life.
He left home at 13 to work cattle ranches out west, eventually traveling to 49 of the 50 states. He settled down long enough to raise a family, but never lost his passion for the road. His daughter says that's why his 1967 Harley meant so much to him.
Freedom. He could go anywhere on that bike he wanted to. My dad was a man that had the wanderlust.
It was 18 years ago, while discussing who would get his prized possession, that an idea intended as a joke took root.
He said, "What am I supposed to do? I got two boys, one bike." My sister just offhandedly said, "Oh, Dad, just be buried with it." I think about 2 weeks after that, it really hit him. What a great idea. And we all was just like, "Dad." And he goes, "No, that's how I'm going out." And we still thought he was kidding. 18 years later, guess what?
Work to make Bill's final wish a reality began 6 years ago. He and his sons built the large plexiglass casket to hold him and his Harley, and he bought 3 burial plots next to his wife.
As you know, Bill was a rodeo cowboy.
Today in Mechanicsburg, mourners gathered.
It's interesting. Speechless.
And gazed.
He's going out in style. Gonna be hard to top this one.
At a man where he was happiest.
Obviously, he did it his way, didn't he?
Bill Stanley, as he wanted to be remembered and be buried on his beloved Harley.
It's not for everyone, but hey, that's what he wanted.
When you would give somebody their last wishes, why be sad?
His friends and family joining him for one final ride. A remarkable sight, an extraordinary send-off.
That's the true Easy Rider right there, that guy right there.
Odd but fitting, offbeat but heartfelt, and his family says just how Bill would have wanted it.
We had ever asked Dad anything in our lifetime, in his lifetime, something special, Dad would do his best to do it for us. So this is all we could do for him. Some people walk through the pearly gates, some ride.
Glenn McIntyre, 10 TV News.
Some ride. Bill Stanley was 82 years old. He leaves behind 4 children, 9 grandchildren, and 21 great-grandchildren.
Right now, troubling new information and new questions about the history of a man who is accused of raping young girls and exposing them to HIV. 10 TV has learned one of those victims, just 12 years old, is pregnant by 27-year-old Keith Anthony Allen. Good evening, I'm Kristen Hartman.
And I'm Jerry Revish, but this is not the first time Allen has been accused of sex crimes against kids. Tonight, one of his accusers in a previous case says Allen should never have been free to offend again. 10 TV's Glenn McIntyre live at the Franklin County Courthouse tonight with a story you'll see only on 10 TV.
Jerry, this teen and her mother say if prosecutors had followed through with her accusations against Allen 2 years ago, these additional girls might have been spared the trauma of sexual assault and the possibility of being infected with HIV. 27-year-old Keith Anthony Allen is in the Franklin County Jail tonight, accused of what prosecutors call one of the most disturbing crimes they've seen. They say he raped 2 12-year-old girls and sexually assaulted a 14-year-old, knowingly exposing them to HIV. A 19-count indictment says Allen sexually assaulted the girls between September of 2014 and March of this year.
He's a sick person. He's a sick bastard.
But this isn't the first time Allen has been accused of a sex crime against a juvenile.
I woke up to Keith on top of me, touching me, and then I asked him to get off me. He said no.
We are not identifying this 16-year-old girl or her mother. They say Keith Allen, who was dating the girl's older sister, sexually assaulted her in 2013.
He said, "Oh, it won't hurt. Don't tell nobody." And I was scared. I was 14 years old. What else is there for me to do?
She found the courage to tell someone, and Columbus police charged Allen with sexual imposition. But tonight there are questions about how authorities followed through with her case. Sexual imposition is a misdemeanor crime handled by the city attorney's office. But an official here says just before Allen's trial, his accusers made more serious accusations which amounted to the crime of rape. That's a felony. Franklin County prosecutes felonies. The city attorney's office says it dropped the misdemeanor case and referred it to the county for the tougher felony charges. But somehow in the transition, the case got lost and Allen went free.
I thought he was going to get jail time because that's what he said. I mean, that's what they said.
This would have been pursued like they said it was going to be pursued back in 2013.
Nobody else would have
been touched
if they would have did their job.
Tonight, this mother and daughter say they are still living with the wounds inflicted by Keith Allen.
It tore my family apart. He tore my family apart.
And troubling questions about what might have prevented other young girls from the same fate.
I feel sorry for the other kids. It could have been prevented.
Me too.
If the courts would have done their job back in 2013.
Now, we have spoken to both the city attorney's office and Franklin County prosecutor Ron O'Brien about that 2013 case. The city attorney's office says it believes the case was referred to O'Brien for prosecution, but O'Brien says he has no record of that happening. Tonight, both offices are looking into the case file, searching for answers. We will keep you posted on that. As for the accusers in this current case, a family member tells us they have all been tested for HIV, and at this point, those tests have come back negative. Reporting live at the Franklin County Courthouse, Glenn McIntyre, 10 TV News.
Glenn, thank you.
This is a tragedy and it should never have happened.
Only on 10 TV, Columbus police admit they mishandled the case that could have put this accused child rapist away before he allegedly struck again. Keith Anthony Allen is currently charged with raping two 12-year-old girls and sexually assaulting a 14-year-old, all while knowing he was HIV positive. Good evening, I'm Jerry Revish.
And I'm Kristen Hartman. But as 10 TV reported last week, they aren't the first girls to tell officers Allen raped them. And what we found has Columbus police tonight admitting mistakes were made that allowed Allen to walk free. 10 TV's Glenn McIntyre is live at Columbus Police Headquarters, where officials made that difficult admission.
Kristen, it's hard to imagine how this case could get more disturbing until you consider the possibility that it could have been prevented. 10 TV is not identifying this man to protect the anonymity of his 12 and 14-year-old sisters. They are two of the three girls accusing 27-year-old Keith Anthony Allen of sex crimes.
He said things to them along the lines of, "You are now my wife. If you even speak to another little boy, it is considered cheating on me. If anybody finds out about this, I will kill your families." And they were terrified. They believed it. You know, they didn't know what to do.
Prosecutors say a third girl, also 12, is pregnant by Allen. All three of them exposed to HIV.
You rob them of the essence of being a kid. How can you do that?
But as 10 TV reported last week, this isn't the first time Allen has been charged with sex crimes against a child.
And I kept on asking him to get off me. He said no. He said, "Oh, it won't hurt. Don't tell nobody." And I was scared. I mean, I was 14.
In 2013, Allen was charged with sexual imposition against this girl. That case was supposed to be sent for felony prosecution, but tonight Columbus police admit that didn't happen.
There were allegations made against the suspect. Initially, they were believed to be misdemeanors. It made it all the way up to the day of the court appearance, and at that point, there were new allegations made, which rose it to the level of a felony. From that point, it's removed from the misdemeanor courts. It's at that time, the process is the detective will take that case and then present it over to common pleas.
Sergeant Rich Weiner says questions raised by 10 TV led the Division of Police to discover the case was never prosecuted.
We made an error at that point. It should have made it over to the prosecutor's office for felony charges, and it didn't.
What do you say to that original accuser's family about that?
It's one of those things where this is a tragedy and it should never have happened. And for that, you know, we're trying to rectify that and make the process as smooth as it can be from this point out.
In this current case, we have two 12-year-old girls exposed to HIV, one of them pregnant as a result of the allegations against him. Could that have been prevented?
It's hard to say if it could have been prevented or not, but we absolutely would have preferred to have had a shot at to put him behind bars the first time.
Who lets a guy like that walk?
Tonight, the brother of Allen's latest accusers calls this news a punch to the gut.
This isn't just a case of things happen. This is a man ruining lives by everything he touches, and it's not just the children, it's the adults around them. I mean, how do you lose track of something that serious?
Tonight, Columbus police say they have started an internal investigation to determine just how this happened. Supervisors have reviewed that 2013 case and say it will be presented to the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office for felony charges by the end of this week. As for those accusers, we are told all 3 girls so far have tested negative for HIV. Keith Allen remains jailed on $1 million bond tonight. You'll find all of our previous coverage on this story on 10TV.com. Reporting live at police headquarters, Glenn McIntyre, 10TV News.
Well, tonight they say a fresh look at old evidence has tied him to 2 more rapes that have gone unsolved for nearly 20 years. 10TV News reporter Glenn McIntyre, who spoke with both women, joins us live with a story you'll see only on 10.
Jerry, behind me is where decades of evidence from unsolved crimes is stored. Before the clock runs out on those crimes, specifically sexual assaults, police are giving them a second look. They say it's what the victims of these crimes deserve. It is a night Kathy Sturmer would prefer to leave in the past, but March 30th, 1996 is still with her.
It's not something I forgot about. It didn't go away.
She was a 30-year-old single mother of 2 living in this Westerville neighborhood, a place she felt safe until the night she woke up to find a stranger with a knife inside her home.
I just think you can't believe there's someone in your house. That's, to me, that was my safety zone, and there was someone there. And at that moment, I thought, where was he? My kids are upstairs. Where was he at? Where did he just come from?
She says he ordered her not to look at his face, and he raped her. Terrified for her young daughters, she resisted her instinct to fight.
All I was worried about at that point was my kids. I didn't want them to wake up. I didn't want them to come down. So I just getting that done with, out of there as fast as possible.
She and her daughters never returned to their home.
The fear, I can't even describe the fear. It took over my life for a while after that. Everything scared me. You just don't feel safe anymore. I mean, your house, the one place where you think you can go, and that's your space. I didn't have that.
6 years would pass before she would hear about a possible suspect. A man named Brandon Humphreys was charged with the rapes of 3 women from 1996 to 2001. In 2002, he was the first man in Columbus to be charged using the DNA database. The cases were similar to Kathy's, but police lacked the evidence to charge him in her case. Until now. Columbus police have been re-examining unsolved sex assaults nearing the 20-year statute of limitations.
We're requesting the cases by year, bring them in and go through each individual case and just make sure that we read the cases, determine if there's anything else that we can do today that we weren't able to do back then.
Sergeant Terry McConnell says this time DNA evidence led them back to Brandon Humphreys. He is now charged in the rapes of 2 more women, including Kathy Sturmer.
I was very happy to hear that those cases still mattered to people.
Today she isn't afraid to show her face and share her story.
I don't feel like I need to hide. It was something that was done to me. I didn't cause it. I didn't ask for it.
Or to face the man she says once terrorized her.
It'd be okay with me if he knows I'm one of the reasons he's going back to jail.
You look forward to facing him, or?
In some way, yeah. Because then I get the power back. Yeah, that's what they took. That's what he took from me. I can take it back.
Brandon Humphreys is currently in prison with 12 years left on his sentence on those previous rape convictions. Police have hoped to add more years to that sentence with these new charges. I spoke by phone with the other woman police say Humphreys raped in 1996. She says she had given up hope of her attacker ever being found and says she was astounded and grateful when police called her with this news. Reporting live, Glenn McIntyre, 10TV News.
Well, they say you can tell a lot about a person by their penmanship. A Hilliard 10-year-old is receiving some serious recognition for his writing ability. In a time when most kids prefer to communicate via touchscreen, 10 TV's Glenn McIntyre shows us what a little boy has achieved with good old pencil and paper.
In this age of tech and texting, some call handwriting a lost art. Some schools have gone as far as deleting cursive from their curriculum.
What's the need for cursive anymore?
That's a good question.
But don't tell that to Jacob Donahue.
I go to St. Brandon's and I am 10 years old. I'm in 4th grade.
He and the written language of longhand go back a long way.
In 2nd grade, I liked it right away.
Why is that?
It looks like curly lines.
Does it look pretty?
Yes, it looks pretty.
Any other reasons?
I write neater and faster than Prince.
But getting to neat didn't come fast for Jacob.
What do you do when you mess up? You always erase?
Erase the letters.
And keep
practicing.
Let's write them down.
Jacob has required a little more practice than his classmates at St. Brendan's in Hilliard. His mother explains why.
He has basically autism spectrum disorder.
Which is why Jacob works with classroom aide Amy Freelou.
Having autism, fine motor skills are very difficult, and he works really hard. He works with an OT every week, and they work on those skills and practice, and so for him to have won this award is just, it's huge.
Did we mention Jacob won an award?
I won a contest.
Not just any contest.
The National Handwriting Contest.
Wow. How did you feel about that?
I feel good about that.
For his mom,
yeah,
the feeling is better than good.
When I was pregnant, I had appendicitis, and the doctors gave him kind of like 40% chance of living. Wow. So for him to be where he is and doing as well as he's doing is kind of a gift to me.
That's not the only time Jacob would be counted out by others.
You know, every once in a while you hear something like, oh, well, you know, maybe he can do, you know, this instead of, you know, maybe being an engineer. Maybe he can just be a technician or something, you know. It's a little disheartening.
You're doing a fabulous job, 4th grade.
For her, this award is a statement about more than her son's way with a pencil.
You can reach higher. You can go for the same goals that everybody else goes for.
And while not all of Jacob's friends are sold on script,
they should practice cursive writing.
And what if they say it's too hard?
I would say you can do it, and I would tell them to practice. Yeah. And say never give up.
Like the boy with the golden pencil, don't write off cursive just yet.
If I can do it, they can do it too.
Glenn McIntyre, 10 TV News. It sits in the hills of southern Ohio, surrounded by tangles of razor wire, walled off from the world. But it is history, not these high walls, that casts the longest shadow over the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility, better known by the name of the community it calls home, Lucasville.
When you hear the facility referred to as Lucasville, the riot that occurred on Easter Sunday does come to mind.
We cannot allow this thing to spread at all.
Prison bosses have been rotating in heavily armed teams.
One of the deadliest prison uprisings in American history, an 11-day siege 22 years ago.
The negotiations again have sputtered.
That left 1 guard and 9 inmates dead. Warden Donald Morgan started here just after the 1993 riot.
That is something that will always be associated with this facility, but at the same time, the changes that has occurred over the years have been positive, and it's something that did occur, but we have gotten better.
Today, SOCF is Ohio's only maximum security prison, home to some 1,300 inmates.
It would be safe to say that we do receive the most aggressive and the most violent offenders across the state.
Some of whom, like the facility that houses them, are trying to outlive the memory of their darkest day.
What most folks may not think about is very real, is the fact that majority of these offenders that are incarcerated in the Department of Corrections are going to return into our community, and they're going to be our neighbors. They're going to be fellow co-workers of some of our family members. My belief that all offenders can change.
So now this section of the facility, he says he's seen it firsthand, most recently in a wing of the prison formerly known as E-Complex.
But as you saw coming down the ramp, the Veterans Corridor is what we've renamed it.
The Veterans Corridor was the accidental brainchild of Corrections Officer Darren Mustard.
The walls were always cream collared. You know, it's a corridor in a maximum security prison.
Initially, all he wanted was to spruce up the walls surrounding his workspace.
You know, come down through here and enjoy being down here while you're down here.
Sure. And so the first thing that came to mind to do that was military.
Being a veteran, yes.
And it started with what?
Started with the United States Army flag.
He had the problem and the solution. What he lacked was the talent. So he started looking for inmates with artistic ability to turn his idea into reality.
If you want an artist, you go find a guy that's got a lot of tattoos.
He found both in an inmate named Michael.
And I was just shocked at the talent. I was really amazed.
I've been itching to work on Grandpa's mural. I still got a lot to do. It started out in grade school. My grade school art teacher, Miss Cheney, she held up a mask that she had made one day and drew a picture of it on a chalkboard. And I thought it was the most amazing thing in the world that someone could just take a stick and make marks on the wall and it looked like a picture. Like you could create that illusion. And I've been practicing and trying it ever since.
But his hobby, in fact his life, would take a devastating detour.
When I was a teenager, I was involved in drinking and drugs and stuff, and got me around a wrong crowd of people, and one thing led to another. You know, drugs and alcohol led to violence. I was charged with 2 counts of attempted murder. I was involved with a confrontation with some people that I used to party with, and things went south. My temper got the best of me, and I shot 2 people. It's probably the biggest regret I have in my life.
Earning him a 20-year sentence, more years in prison than he'd had on this planet.
When I first came to prison, being young and given the sentence that I was given, it made me even more angry, and it made me lash out, and most of the problems that I had that got me here ended up getting worse.
But today,
does this go there?
This violent felon,
does that go there?
With discipline issues for days,
does this look like grass or just a blob of green paint?
Has found peace in paint.
Kind of get lost in it. It's B-24 Liberators. It's the plane my grandpa served on.
Turning bland prison walls into a Technicolor tribute to those who have served.
Is it significant to you to be painting, you know, something that's connected to him?
Absolutely. My grandfather was my hero. To me, he's the greatest man that ever lived.
When they're focused on their family and focused on their work, then they're focused on a change. So then I thought, well, you know, that's a little bit of water for the plant. So it just started growing.
We never slowed down after the first 5 flags went up on the wall. Once we saw the offenders and some of their artistic ability.
Soon, the view from Mustard's desk wasn't the only noticeable change.
When the warden comes down, knows your name, and says, hey, man, that is sharp. How do you do that? It gives them that breath of fresh air. It's a light at the end of the tunnel.
How long has it been since you've been able to have something to be proud of or praised for?
High school, maybe.
Michael was transferred to Lucasville because of behavior problems at other prisons. Since he started painting here, he's had 0 incidents and is now eligible to transfer to a less secure facility. But he's chosen to stay here.
It's not the most comfortable of living conditions down here, but I love my job. I love what it means to people, and art itself has taught me a little bit about dedication, and I want to see it through.
The project has been viewed by local veterans groups.
I mix them while they're wet on the wall.
And Michael is now tutoring other inmates.
I've never believed it. You know, I've always been an offender, a criminal, you know, and this has not only made me see people in a different light, but it's made, you know, society and staff here have all viewed me a lot different now. We actually have a social interaction. We can talk and discuss family and, you know, military, politics. It breaks down a lot of barriers. Like I said, it's not just pictures.
You're more than a mugshot. You're more than your crime.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I finally get to voice that and finally get to show it to people. Got to do a little line. And
Today, the warden calls him a model prisoner. Still, Michael says he'll never forget his crimes, and he knows others won't either.
It's really hard to pull away from that. Some people never do. That'll be their mark for the rest of their life.
But for the opportunity to make a new mark,
It's my favorite one.
to find light in the darkest of places, he says he is grateful.
Being able to go from the guilt of what I've done, you know, the people that I've hurt and stuff like that, to give a small measure back, you know, and realize that my past doesn't dictate who I am.
In a facility that was rebuilt brick by brick, working to write a new story for itself day by day, men who've done the darkest of deeds, brushstroke by brushstroke, now see a portrait of hope. Glenn McIntyre, 10 TV News.